It is time for another design battle, and this time we're going to have a look at two American EVs. And in the red corner we have the brand new 2023 Fisker Ocean. It's powered by two electric motors in its top trim level, and this gives the Fisker Ocean 550 horsepower and a claimed 0 to 60 time in 3.6 seconds. It's got all-wheel drive with the dual motor setup with a range of just over 300 miles. You get an 80 kilowatt-hour battery with recharging speeds up to 350 kilowatts. This is capable of restoring 200 miles of range in about 18 minutes or so. Pricing for the Ocean starts at $37,499, and that's for the base single motor sports trim, and it goes all the way up to $68,000 for the dual motor Ocean Extreme trim. And in the blue corner we find the best-selling Tesla Model Y, and the Model Y now only comes with a dual motor setup with up to 580 horsepower, and it gets to 60 miles per hour, 0.1 of a second quicker than the Ocean, and that's at 3.5 seconds. It's got all-wheel drive as standard these days with a maximum range of about 318 miles. You get a 75 kilowatt-hour battery with recharging speeds up to 300 kilowatt, and this is capable of restoring 200 miles of range in around 22 minutes or so. With the standard range model being discontinued now for 2022, the base price sits obviously higher than the Fisker Ocean because Tesla Model Y have a new base model, and that is the long range, which costs $58,990 at the time of this video, and the performance, the top trim level, comes in at $63,999. So what I want to do in this video, have a look at both these designs from the front, side, and the rear, and also we're going to have a look at the interior. There are some similarities but also some differences in these two designs here. So first of all, they have a very different design approach just looking at the lines of these two cars. Tesla Model Y, it looks like a proper EV. I think this was the model that actually coined the term bean shape. At least for me, that was a Tesla Model Y. It has the same styling and graphics in the front end, and overall, generally in the whole body, it shares with the Tesla Model 3. But in the Tesla Model Y here, when you have this height, the proportions kind of looks like you just took a Tesla Model 3 and stretched it out in Photoshop, and that turned into the Tesla Model Y. So the proportions look a little funky, but I think at the time, right now, I got kind of used to it, and it looks more normal right now than it did when I first saw it, specifically when I was used to seeing the Tesla Model 3, and then the Model Y came out with these proportions here that I said, it kind of looks exactly like the Model 3, but just stretched out. But it does have some nice line flow in it. So we have this line right here in the front end, stretching from the front one corner to the other, and then we have these shoulder lines right here, these two fender lines. The first one stretches a little bit longer than the rear one, and we're going to have a look at this more in detail in the side view. But then we also have this line down here, which is pretty traditional line, but it looks good on this design, and it doesn't have anything that can age badly. So I think that's what one of the design philosophies of Tesla is they have the Model S, I think, introduced in 2011, 2012, and it's still in production today and still looks pretty fresh. So I think they're keeping it very conservative when it comes to the design, and I think it's working out for them. I kind of like the Model Y these days, specifically in the performance package, when you have, I think, an inch or a half of an inch lower suspension, and you also have the 22-inch wheels. They might be 21, I'm not sure, I can't remember, but they look really good, specifically in white, in my opinion. I test drove a red one and it was super fun to drive. Although the weird thing with compared to the Tesla Model 3 is you really feel like you're sitting in an SUV in the Tesla Model Y, even though it doesn't look like it's that much higher, but it has a completely different driving position and drive feel than the Tesla Model 3. I was really surprised by that when I test drove it. So looking at the Fisker down here, you can clearly see that this is a Fisker front end because we have this graphic, which is typical Fisker with this mouth here. If you look at any Fisker model, most of them are going to have that type of a grill, and you can see that they kind of made it feel like a grill here with this opening down here, and it looks like it doesn't sit that high thanks to this massive black grill here, because this removes kind of this graphic, and it feels like the car actually starts with where the body colors are painted, so it doesn't look like it sits too high, but it actually is a pretty high front end here. And comparing this to the Tesla Model Y, the very interesting thing is that the Fisker Ocean looks like it could be any type of internal combustion engine proportions, specifically with this height in the front end. And when we look at the side view, I'm going to show you where the A-pillar starts and stops with these two models. And the Ocean has a much more internal combustion proportions all around the car, comparing it to the Tesla Model Y. So having a look at the rear view here, and this is where the Fisker gets really interesting, but let's just quickly talk about the Model Y first. I really like this ducktail that all Model Ys and Model 3s have, and I love it when they put a little performance carbon fiber spoiler up here. Makes it look even better in my opinion. It's like a sharp edge that sends off the design in a beautiful way, and it's a very simplistic and clean design. You have this line right here creating a solid looking bumper, and then you have this diffuser that sticks up a lot higher than it does on the Model 3, for example. And I think that's a good thing, because as in the case with the front end of the Fisker Ocean, this takes away some mass in the rear end, and it makes it look a little shorter than what it actually is. It is a pretty tall car, the Model Y, but having graphics in the bottom, black graphic like this, that kind of deletes this mass, it helps with the overall proportions and how you visually perceive the height of the rear end. I do like the taillights as well. I've noticed that if you look at the brake lights of Tesla Model Ys and Model 3s, they actually don't have the same brake light. I think the Model Y, Model Y, when you brake, this outer part shines up, while you brake in the Model 3, I think, if I remember correctly, that this part is what lights up. So you can have a look at that next time you see a Model 3 and a Model Y. Have a look at the taillights and see the differences in what actually lights up of the LED bars. It's pretty interesting to see that. Now, having a look at the Fisker Ocean down here, what really struck me were these taillights. These look like 100% conceptual taillights. I'm not sure how thin we're gonna go, if we're gonna have to like use a razor blade to model these in the future to create some taillights, but this is probably as thin of taillights as you can get these days. I think these are not even the main taillights. These are just sort of daytime running lights or something like that. I think the taillights are down here, because I think these are too small to have brake lights in. I'm not sure, I have to look into that, but it feels like these down here are the actual brake lights of the car. But looking at it like this, you can't really tell that it's an EV. It has a very nice proportions, some really internal combustion proportions right here. It fills up the frame beautifully, and I like the bubbliness of this design in combination with some sharp angles that we're gonna have a look at in the side view. So let's do that right now. First of all, let's look at the bean shape of the Tesla Model Y. I really like the line flow in this design, as I talked about in the front view. You have this line going right here, as you can see. If I can hit the right layer first of all, we have this line right here stretching into the body and creates this long, beautiful sweeping line right here, and then it kind of connects to the rear end, but it disappears in this surface right here. So it almost reaches each other. It almost creates a continuous line as the shoulder line, but I kind of like that it fades right here in this surface right here. It makes it interesting to look at. And then you have, of course, this beautiful ducktail in the rear end of the design, sending the design off. And as I said, if you have the spoiler on, it's gonna be more of an upswing right here, and it looks really good. This area of both the Model 3 and the Model Y is probably my favorite surfacing design of both these two cars. And then, of course, you have the bottom line right here that goes into the bumper. So we have a nice line flow going on right here, and I really like the design of this. And I think this is gonna look fresh in 5, 10, 15 years from now. Maybe they have replaced the Model 3 and the Model Y by then, but I think the design overall is still gonna look pretty fresh in a decade or so from now. Looking at the Fisker Ocean, in my opinion, it's not as timeless as the Model Y. It does have a lot of things going on here that is stylized more than the Model Y. It's gonna set it apart for sure, but I think the design is not gonna age as well as the Model Y, and the reason for that, for example, we have this thing popping up right here, which looks cool, and it creates a nice design and styling for the Fisker Ocean, but it's a very unique treatment of that, what is it, A, B and C D pillar over here. It's a very unique treatment of the D pillar, but looking at the proportions, it's very different from what we have in the Model Y up here, specifically looking at the hood. The hood looks like it can house an internal combustion engine in here, while on the Model Y it's impossible because of the sloping line of this, similar to the Kia EV6 for example. I think the Model Y has more in common in the design with the Kia EV6 than it does with the Fisker Ocean. I like both of these designs. They are two completely different approaches to design. I think the Fisker is more of a product design with more static graphics, such as this graphic right here, which is completely symmetrical on this side and doesn't really create a movement either front or back, but at the same time it's a cool looking SUV, and this looks like a proper SUV that if you put some other different tires on, you could probably take this off-road. And it does come with an off-road mode, but only in the top trim level. Now, last but not least, let's have a look at the interiors here. These are very similar to each other, but the functionalities are pretty different at the same time. So Tesla, we're all used to this interior by now. Very, very stripped down, very basic element styling of the Tesla. I thought when I bought my Model 3 back in last year, I thought that I was gonna be bored by that interior, but in fact, after a while, I started to appreciate the simpleness of the interior of the Tesla, and it didn't bother me. I didn't feel like I need to do things all the time, like when you have all the buttons and all the screens in other cars just flashing at you when you're driving. It's pretty comfortable to have a stripped down interior like this right here. So I didn't have any problems with it, and you have this 15-inch screen here that you have in the Tesla Model 3 as well. And looking at the Fisker Ocean right here, it gets a little more stuff in here. I really like the lights down here. It looks really cool. I can't really see what all these buttons do, but you have some more physical buttons that are integrated in the software in the Tesla down here. In these buttons down here in the screen, touchscreen, you have actual physical buttons in the Fisker, which I appreciate. You also have a drive selector right here, looks like drive, parking, and rear. And this screen is 17.1 inches. And the thing with this is you can rotate it. So if you're charging, you can rotate it to watch YouTube or whatever you want to watch. The thing is though, I'm not sure if I would ever have it in this position. I would probably always have it in the Tesla's horizontal position like this. So I'm not sure if that would be, for me personally, a useful feature, but it's a cool thing to know that you can rotate it. And in addition to that, you have this additional display right here, which I thought I was gonna miss in the Tesla right here, because you have to look up here to see your speed and look this way instead of just looking down when you're driving. But at the same time, it's something that you get used to pretty quick. So which one would I buy based on the design? I have to come in with some pricing here as well. So if I were to buy the Fisker Ocean, I do want to have the solar panel because it looks so cool, but that is for the 68,000 version. The mid version though, it still has 540 horsepower instead of 550. It still comes with two dual motors, all-wheel drive, and that comes in at 49,900 or something like that. So that's a pretty good deal, because the Tesla Model Y, what was the long-range price for the Tesla Model Y? It's like $58,000. So you save about $9,000 there from the Fisker compared to the Tesla, 58,990 for the Tesla Model Y long range. And if I buy a Fisker, it's gonna look so cool and it's gonna stand out at least for a year or so, because there are so many Tesla Model Ys out on the streets right now, and they all look pretty much the same. There's not a lot of people modifying their Tesla. I did it with my Model 3, and I think that looks really good, just putting some 20-inch wheels on there. It just totally transformed the entire setup, the stance of the car with the staggered setup in the wheels as well. So that's, if I were buying a Tesla Model Y, I would do some modifications to that to make it stand out from the thousands of Model Ys, specifically down here in South Florida. But I would probably go with the mid-level Fisker Ocean as my choice right now for $49,000, 540 horsepower, all-wheel drive, a pretty good value. The only thing I would be a little worried about is the quality issues. It doesn't have it has zero history, so we don't know how the build quality for the Fisker is gonna be. But when it comes to design, I think it's interesting to think that this looks the way it does, and it's designed with Henrik Fisker as the CEO of the company, obviously, and he's responsible for designs such as the BMW Z8 and the Aston Martin DB9, for example. Two very, very beautifully timeless, gorgeous designs in my opinion, and this looks a lot different than those two cars, not just in the proportions, but I'm talking about the graphics here as well. So it feels like Henrik Fisker has really embraced the new EV design DNA with the new Fisker Ocean.